My name is Snail, and we're here today to celebrate Cupheadronpa reaching 5,000 followers. I'd like to apologize for how long this video has taken to make. Life has been wild recently. I don't want to go into all of that though, because it's kinda sad and personal, and this video is supposed to be a celebration, a fun little Q&A to celebrate 5K, and really, at this point, the 4-year anniversary, which will be on July 15th. That's wild, good grief. I was 16 when I started this? Speaking of age, why not throw a third celebration into this to give me another reason to make this video longish? I'm turning 20 on June 9th, or by the time this video has been posted, I turned 20 on June 9th. Point is, I'm 20, and I'm finishing with college, and then I'm going to be in university in the fall? What I'm trying to say is there's a lot to celebrate. I've reached a lot of milestones in the past 6 months, and so we're here. A while back, I asked everyone via an Instagram story for questions they had for me in relation to Cupheadronpa and the Fangan creation process. On top of those, I asked for drawing requests, and during the entirety of this video, you'll be seeing the speed paints on the screen. Thank you to everyone who sent in questions or requests. You've helped me greatly in making this video a special one for such an important milestone. I'll try to answer as many questions as possible, but some of them won't be answered due to the questions being related to possible spoilers. And, as my friends know very, very well, I tend to spill too much information. Shout out to Zach, who I accidentally told the identity of the mastermind to a while back. I'd also like to give a heads up that I will openly be discussing things that have happened within the story, meaning, spoiler warning for Cupheadronpa up until the latest Chapter 5 FTE. Go check it out before the video. Thank you! And with that long intro out of the way, let's start with the Q&A. I'll be starting with the questions relating to pre-fangan posting activities, meaning things like inspirations, drawing, planning, etc. How did you come up with the idea for this fangan? Or how did you come up with the idea for Cupheadronpa? Or what motivated you to make this fangan? I get this question a lot. The answer is Ronpa and Friends, which is run by my friend Spade. Back in March of 2020, during the early pandemic days, one of my artist friends posted fan art for the story. I was in my Disney Duckverse phase, which included DuckTales, The Three Caballeros, and other things like that, and when I saw this, I was instantly curious, a mix of Mickey Mouse and Danganronpa. My interest was piqued, and I ended up binging the whole thing that was out at the moment. I joined the Discord after I finished reading it, once I found out it existed, and absolutely loved being there. I made friends, the community was nice, and I saw multiple people talking about making their own fangans. As time passed and I got back into Cuphead, I realized that I could make my own story with those characters. I immediately started to work on it, and, on the same day that I'd thought of it, I posted a sneak peek post that I'd hastily put together on my family computer. So yeah, you guys can thank Spade for this whole story even existing. I never would have thought of it otherwise. How long did it take you to plan CHR before starting it? 5 months! I started the creative process on July 16th, and officially shared the first story-related post on December 16th. Prior to that, I had shared a sneak peek along with splash art of some of the characters, along with their ultimates, to bring in a bit of a crowd in hopes of starting with some following. It worked, thanks to some bigger fangan creators like Ronpa and Friends and PenguinRonpa sharing the original sneak peek post. During those 5 months, I'd been setting up the server, working on the rough draft, working on the actual prologue script, and drawing all the sprites, background, and the CGs I would be needing. I also got COVID midway, and I was a high school student as well, so it took some time, but we got there. How did you choose what characters to put in the killing game? Cuphead, Mugman, and King Dice were a given. It's the 2 main characters, along with one of the main antagonists. I couldn't add in the devil because, while he can get beat up, I don't think he can actually die, you know? I wanted all the characters to be mortal, which meant no demons, no ghosts, no ghouls, which cut out Miss Chalice and the entirety of the Phantom Express. Next was the harder part. All of the debtors were interesting. They all had their hooks, their special attributes. I knew I didn't want any NPCs inside the killing game. I also knew I wanted at least 3 characters from each aisle. Cuphead and Mugman were counted on the first aisle, hence only 2 of the bosses from there. Inkwell Hell needed a good amount because I wanted Dice to have some allies within the killing game. I knew I wanted some characters in nearly immediately. Cagney and Hilda are some of my favorite bosses. Their designs are really fun, and they're just really interesting to me. I also wanted the Carnival Trio in. They're already a trio, and, again, I really, really like them. Finally, I also wanted Calla because, it's Calla Maria. She's one of the most known bosses in the game. I couldn't not add her. So that gave us 9 characters, leaving me needing 8 more. Chips and Wheezy were picked because I'd seen them a lot throughout the earlier Cuphead days, and I enjoyed the fanon, anthropomorphized, if I don't know how to say that word, anthro versions of them. Hopus ended up being added because of 2 reasons. He was the perfect first killer in my eyes, and I also adore cute animals being not at all safe to be around. Piruletta was added because she just gave me very motherly vibes when she came on screen, and I thought that would help even out the more chaotic nature of the casino crew. Werner and Cal were added into the cast because I needed mechanics, someone that could work up a plan to escape. Also, Cuppa's whole backstory, they needed to be there for that. Sally was added in because I am a theater kid. I never really did theater, but I always wanted to, and I thought actors were really cool. Also, I think she's pretty. And, I'll be real, Briny Beard was added in because I like pirates. A lot. Funny how he died first. Oops. How do you come up with the death order and murder plot? The death order depends on your cast as a whole. I knew I wanted Hopus as the first Blackened because he was already an unhinged, violent-minded character who had a very strong connection with the casino crew. Briny Beard was the only one I couldn't see having an important role later on, so sadly he went first. After that, it's just a matter of domino effects. Who would crack first? For what reason? What are they willing to go as far as murder for, if not just escape? Who would they see as vulnerable enough to attack? Would they actually go for the vulnerable person, or would they go for the smart person who might get in their way the most? The death order is something you should base around your characters, not base your characters around, in my opinion. Build an interesting cast, make them believable, and then delve into their mind and fears and find out who, out of all of them, would be the one desperate enough to turn to murder. Was it difficult to decide the different outfits of the cast? No, not really. Cuphead was given a jacket, and Mugman was given a scarf because I thought it would fit them. Plus, that's how I drew them as a kid. Dice as a character doesn't really strike me as someone who would go around in public without some kind of fancy dress, so essentially I just took off his tux, his corset, and changed his bow tie to a tie. That's also how I drew him once when I was in grade 9. Chips was just given a very stereotypical cowboy outfit, and Wheezy, specifically his jacket, was inspired by the amount of other fans drawing him with a huge amount of fluff to simulate his ashtray. I thought that was genius, so I implemented that into his design. Cagney couldn't just walk around naked, so I gave him pants and a jacket in earthy colors. Calla was given a look that I honestly thought Cuppa would be able to quickly buy from somewhere and give it to her. The rest of the cast either had their original looks, or their original looks were altered somewhat to fit the more modern setting I'd placed the story in. What would be a normal amount of sprites to make for someone? You want the basic ones first. Neutral, happy, upset, thinking, confused, shocked, fearful, because those are the ones you'll need for the prologue. There's not really a normal amount of sprites, I think. It all depends on your character. If your character isn't someone who's very outwardly expressive, or they're someone who seems very closed off, you won't want a lot. However, more expressive characters might need a bigger variety due to more gestures being required, more poses, more dramatic expressions. It also depends on how much screen time they'll have overall. A character who survives the whole game will have a lot more sprites than a character who dies in Chapter 1. For example, right now, Cuphead has about 40 sprites, including the 5 motive ones. These include 5 different poses. On the other hand, Dr. Cal has 19 sprites currently being used, including the Chapter 5 motive ones. There are only 2 poses for his non-motive sprites, and then a separate one for his motive ones, because he's not as expressive as Cuphead. He mostly closes himself off by crossing his arms over his chest, or he's adjusting his glasses. Cuphead moves his arms around, which means he needs more poses to express that. At the end of the day, however many sprites you think your character needs is a correct number. There's no right or wrong. How long does it take to draw one character? In terms of sprites, about 3 hours per separate pose. Some poses that have the same base but have an arm in different angles can take 4 hours, but it never goes for longer than that, I don't think. Of course, at the beginning it took me much longer, around 6 or 7 hours, but with time you learn the best way to separate the facial expressions and the different limb positions, and you can bring the overall time down. Were there any scrap designs? Like different clothes, eye colors, etc.? There were some to some extent. At first, Cagney wasn't going to have the jacket he now wears. Bonnie's layered dress was going to be similar to her in-game one. It would have been shorter, and the bottom of each layer would have had icing-like fringes at the bottom. Hilda didn't originally have a ribbon around her waist. Another change was that Jimmy was originally going to have his genie lamp shoes, but I despised drawing them, so I changed that. I still hate drawing those. Otherwise, not much changed with the rest of the characters. And that's all there is for pre-fangan questions. Next, I'll be answering questions that have to do with the actual story. This will include questions about daily lives, deadly lives, execution, and all of that fun stuff. Let's go! How far do you plan ahead? How far back did you have everything planned, like the Death Order, Killer Order? I had everything planned way ahead. The Death Order, Traitors, Masterminds, all of that was planned before I even thought of writing a proper script. As the story progressed, sometimes I would change things. For example, Beppy originally would have made it to Chapter 5. All of the Chapter 5 deaths have changed since the beginning, and so have parts of Chapter 6. There's nothing wrong with changing parts of your story as you go along. Just make sure that everything is coherent and doesn't go against itself. If I've done that, whoops. I try not to, but when you write a fangan over a 4-year span and you started off as a teenager, you realize some of your plot points were really bad and you just have to find a way to adjust to your new standards while keeping everything coherent. As for writing, I try to have entire chapters written out before I start posting them. Keyword is try. I always have half of the chapter's good script written out by the time I have to start posting, though, so there's that, at least. It makes everything easier. What are your inspirations for motives? Was it hard to come up with motives? Motives were hard to come up with, but they also weren't? I knew I wanted Despair Disease as my first one, because I loved the idea of it. When I first started, I wasn't aware of how many people actually used it. But as I was writing the base script for the prologue, I realized that almost every fangan I came across at the time had used that motive. So I put my own twist on it, and made it so the motive victims weren't going to be the killers. That's what everyone always expects, so I decided to change up expectations. The traitor reveal motive was also a pretty easy decision, nothing much to go into with this one. The mutilation motive was actually much more brutal at first. It wasn't mutilation. The victims of the motive would flat out be killed. The basis was that someone would snap, and in a refusal of getting off and an absolute desire for self-preservation, they'd end up killing someone else. Cully, one of my beta readers and one of my best friends, suggested switching it up to mutilation, getting worse with every victim. which would keep the cast alive, would help make it not feel like some super cheap way to kill off characters, and keep the tension of who's next going. I don't actually remember how Chapter 4's came to be, but Kali probably had a hand in it as well. Chapter 5 was one I'd planned since the beginning, just because I love to switch up dynamics sometimes. So overall, my motivations vary between other fangans and my friend Kali's suggestions. Are we gonna get new characters, new sprites, and new CGs? Yes to all three. You'll be getting new characters for sure. I'm really excited for the intermission after the Chapter 5 day that I still haven't finished. Sorry for that, by the way. As for sprites, the two masterminds left haven't been revealed yet, have they? On top of that, killers always get new sprites. And lastly, for CGs, well, easy yes. We've got a couple chapters left, and a few intermissions too. You can bet you'll see new CGs. Was it hard to write the characters since this was before the show? Not really. I had personalities for all of them in mind since before I had started Cupheadronpa. I've been a Cuphead fan since it came out in 2017, and because of that I've been building stories for all of these characters since then. By 2020, I'd had these characters developing in mind for 3 years, so there weren't any struggles at all. What made you decide to connect certain characters like Dice and Cagney, or Cagney and Spectre for example? Cagney and Spectre is simple. People shipped them ever since the beginning of the game's fandom's existence, and I was one of them, gang. I was, and still am, a Ghost Blossom shipper. I don't know when or how it originated, but I just think a flower and a ghost is a really silly couple, and I love it a lot. As for Dice and Cagney, Piru and Bonnie, or even Dice and Sally, I think the casino crew having connections to people from the Isles, or just Isle debtors in general, is really interesting and ties the island together. Dice and Sally also had the added feeling of Dice always giving off dramatic theater kid vibes. He literally has his own song with lyrics about how bad he is in the game, and Sally is essentially a grown-up theater kid, so, you know, it felt right to tie them together some way. Who's your favorite in the entire cast to write for? That's a hard one. For the intermission, I think it's the Devil. He's always so angry and just isn't interested in his surroundings. Ever. He doesn't care that there was a whole crazy death spree disaster outside, and he doesn't care that 17 people went missing, nor does he care about any of the main intermission cast characters. He only cares about his missing casino workers, and that's it. Also, his quips are really fun to write. He's just a fun guy overall. Of the dead characters, I think I miss writing Sally the most. She was just so sweet all the time, but also dramatic, and I don't know. I love her so much. For the characters currently alive, not counting the motive, Chips and Hilda. Absolutely adore them. They're so fun, and Hilda's sarcastic comments and snark is always an upside to my designated writing times. Chips is just relatable in the way he's forcing himself to be optimistic while everything falls apart around them. He's just like me for real, I could say. With the motive though, Wheezy. Impulsive Wheezy is so funny, I love him. And Cal being continuously lovey-dovey is also one of my highlights. All of this is excluding Cuppa, of course. Cuppa wins by a landslide. How do you fill up the space in between the important parts like motives and death? The first thing to do, in my opinion, is not to think of those spaces as less important. Motives, deaths, all of those quote-unquote important parts, they won't be impactful if your characters aren't developed. Underdeveloped characters won't be characters that people will connect to, and when one character dies, they won't really feel anything, right? Those spaces are actually the most important, or at least that's how I view it, because that's when you delve into your characters, work on their characterization, share who they are, what are their strengths, their flaws, their personalities and relationships. Why should the audience care for them? Your viewers will learn to love these characters during those spaces, because that's when you get to show your characters in their full glory. Murders and motives and trials, that's not a good time to flesh out your characters unless it suits the mystery and it's useful to the story. My suggestion to you is to go around and have your protagonist engage in conversation and join in group activities. That'll help you show your audience how these characters act in one-on-one conversations versus how they'll act in group dynamics. Use those spaces between motives and deaths and trials to share your characters and show us what makes them special. You can also add conflicts, once again led by your characters, because they'll have different motivations, different values, different views on the situation. That time should be used to turn your cast into fully fledged characters, each with their own fears and dreams and wants and desires. This isn't a super clear, well-put answer, but I hope it can help anyways. What's a character that you slowly liked writing for more as the story progressed? There's two actually, Cal and Hilda. I don't really know how to explain it, but they went from characters I enjoyed but weren't really in my top ones to characters I love writing. Cal and Hilda are one of my favorite characters now, easily in the top 10. Like I said earlier, Hilda's snark and her boldness are so fun for me to write. She's a bold character who doesn't take any BS from anyone, and she's just so fun to write. Cal's cool and collected personality that's hiding a mad scientist bent on world domination is also so fun to write. I love just letting his deeper desire slip out, and having him paired with weapons expert and tinkerer Werner just makes for a fun little duo of power couple that seems friendly enough, but shouldn't be messed with because they can and will mess you up. And, I mean, their kid became a Killing Game host, so they're just a family of wacky people that shouldn't be messed with. You know, maybe I just like writing the family dynamic as a whole more and more as time passed. What chapter was your favorite to make, or the best one in your opinion? Favorite chapter? Out of all the finished ones, Chapter 4. Easy. It was one I'd been looking forward to for a really long time. It was the chapter I was most excited for. The Mugman reveal, the whole Cagney thing, the execution, Cuphead starting a proper investigation into everything, Cuppa dropping hints that things weren't as innocent victims on the participants' side as it seemed. And the intermission at the end, with Spectre finding Cagney at the dock? It's so good! I love Chapter 5 too, but I think Chapter 4 beats it for me, even then. You can make your own decision once it's done, though. Which execution was the hardest? To make? Cagney's. Easy. I added in tweening, which I'd never done before. The art was much cleaner than any of the other executions. The editing took much, much longer. It was overall just a really long process. A long process that was definitely worth it, though. I love the final product. Love the movements, the cleanliness, the action. It's all so good. And the music, don't get me started on the music. I'm gonna do a 2-for-1 on this question because Rap8647 asked, where did the music for the Chapter 4 execution come from? It's an absolute banger. First, yeah, it is a banger. It fits the panic, the rush and fear going through Cags as they're running through this maze trying to free themselves and stop the floor from getting caught in the crossfire. It fits the urgency Dice and Hilda feel while running to help Cagney out of the unfair execution. And all of that is thanks to Tofu, creator of Penguin-Ronpa and one of my best friends, who is tremendously talented and amazing at everything they make. They made an amazing job turning Floral Fury into a Danganronpa-esque execution theme, and I will never be able to thank them enough for the amazing results they produced. The Chapter 4 execution would not be the same without their help. What would you say is the hardest part of writing, like trials, executions, etc.? Trials. Definitely trials. I don't have any issues with the daily lives. It's simple enough. You share the characters and how they interact, have them react to the motives, have free time events. It's not complicated. The investigations aren't that hard either because the cast just explores the building and finds clues and possible red herrings that could help them in the trial. The trial, though? Good lord, they are the hardest part for me. You have to go through all the clues, all the alibis, tie everything together. You have to help the audience reach the truth without spoon-feeding the answer to them, which I, admittedly, did in the first 2 chapters back when I was still learning how to write proper trials. Through Mugman just flat out telling everyone Hopus was the Chapter 1 killer, and then Chapter 2's case just being kind of a mess. It gets easier as time goes on, of course, but there's also the fact that you kind of have to make the cases a little more difficult with each chapter because your cast is smaller, which leads to the probability of getting it right being smaller. For example, Chapter 1's chances of getting it right were about 1 in 17, because you can never write out self-inflicted deaths in fangans, or about 6%. For Chapter 5, though, we're going to be down to 1 out of 8 chances of getting it right, so about 13%. If we don't count the victim, it would be about 1 out of 7 or 14%. So yeah, trials are hard. How did you decide the first killer and victim, and why them out of everyone else? For the victim, I just didn't really see it being anyone else, to be honest. I love Briny Beard, don't get me wrong, but he was the one that fit the mold the most at the time. As for Hopus, it made the most sense. He was shown to be murderous and violent near the beginning, and he was exceptionally close to the casino crew. If anything happened to one of them, he'd be ready to kill immediately. So, having Chips be fueled by paranoia and close everyone out was the best way to bring him to act. So I'm making a fan game, and one question: what is the best way to write a murder case? I always start by writing the closing argument. That way you'll know the important things: how the victim died, where, with what weapons, and how the killer committed the crime before trying to hide that they did it. Once that's settled, you go through the investigation. Make sure everyone gives their alibi. Make sure all the proof is found unless there's something you don't want the cast to find. Once you get to the trial, I like to start at the body, because learning the cause of death will help the cast find out if there were red herrings in their clues and all of that. Once that's done, it's up to you and the characters. Where would the conversation go organically? Who would lead the group in the right direction? Who would go against the proof or try to suggest an alternate path to take that's blatantly wrong? Make sure everything that happens is in character for your cast. And don't make the trial any longer than it needs to be. There's no need to drag it out. The first trial is going to be short, but as you learn how to write them better, you will find yourself writing longer trials like it's second nature. I always wondered why you chose Mugman to be a mastermind. Originally, just because it was the protagonist's brother. I was 16 when I started this, and I thought it would be such a twist. As time went on and I properly developed the backstory though, it made more and more sense to keep it that way. You'll see. Why did you decide to completely kill off the Carnival trio? I couldn't bring myself to properly separate them. That and Beppy was originally meant to live to Chapter 5, but I already had an optimistic character dealing with grief and betrayal alone planned out with Cuphead, and I didn't want to do it twice. Bonnie was always meant to die, as was Jimmy. At some point, I was thinking of having Beppy actually survive to the end, but I went the route in which he killed Sally to avenge Jim. I miss them all so much, but I think this was the best route to choose for them. Snail, how do you feel after destroying everybody with the deaths? Genuinely, I'm glad the deaths are actually hitting hard, because that means people are connecting with these characters. It means I'm characterizing them in ways that speak to the audience and that makes you guys feel connected to them. That's also why I don't much mind the hatred of some characters, because that means the same thing. My characters are written well enough to be liked and disliked. I'm glad I'm able to write the cast well. Or, you know, it's the predisposed love of these characters, but I like to think it's the former. What's motivating you to keep this series going? The story in general. I love writing the story, and I really want to see it end. I've poured so many hours and so many tears into this project, and so have my friends, voice actors, beta readers, and the general audience. I've had so many conversations about the story, been told people love it, and I'm so happy people can enjoy such a silly project I've been enjoying despite the hiatuses. Let's head into the post-fangan questions. In other words, things like, what would you change, or do you have any plans after this? It'll be a mix of questions for me looking back on already published chapters, and what I'll be doing once the series is over. These 4 questions are all essentially asking if there would be anything I would change, from fates to participants to anything story related. So, would I change anything? Yes, kind of. I wouldn't change the characters or their fates, I'm quite happy with them, but I would change how I handled some of these characters, and, in one case, the whole chapter. You know which one. First, Brainy-Beard. I don't think I gave him enough screen time. It was hard, obviously, because I had 17 characters plus Cuphead to juggle at the time, but he was kind of pushed aside for the Mugman and Cuphead thing that was going on along with the rest of the motive. I'm not super upset about it, because he did get some screen time and some characterization, and people still like him today. I just wish I could have made him more memorable. For Hopus, I wouldn't change much other than his trial. I could do so much better today, but that's my only gripe with him. Now, Chapter 2. Easily my worst chapter. It was short, and that's not a problem at all. Some chapters will be short. But the Piru and Bonnie conflict came out of nowhere. There were no hints towards it, no little clues, nothing you could look back on and go, oh, that makes so much sense now. Until that chapter when Bonnie was acting paranoid because of the traitor reveal, which you could just take as, well, yeah, there's a traitor, and Piru's being suspicious. Obviously Bonnie's angry. On top of that, the trial could have been longer and more twist and turny. Sure, there were only 4 suspects, excluding Piru, but none of them really had alibis. The only proper alibis were Beppy and Jimmy, and even then, who's to say they couldn't have done the crime together? Actually, fun fact, Beppy was originally going to be an accomplice to the crime, but I changed it up. Back to the rant though, it could have been anyone. The pot crashing is what alerted Dice. Who's to say he didn't break it and use that as his lie? It wasn't used in the crime at all. It could have been a horribly executed crime, which was the point because Bonnie always had people to do her work for her, but because none of the suspects had solid alibis, it could have been an actually good and interesting trial that didn't end up just being meh. At least in my eyes. Another thing I'd change is the intermissions. I waited too long to start the proper investigation on the outside, and now there aren't many clues as to what the link to the killing game is, or as to who the outside mastermind is. The final thing would be the clues I dropped about the second in-game mastermind, though I can't really explain why. You'll see once the story's over, because I'll probably make another video then. But yeah, you know, I'd change some things. I might just rewrite the earlier chapters one day, who knows? Would you do a second season with the DLC characters? Do you have plans for what you're going to do after CHR? I put these 2 questions together because they're kind of similar, relating to future projects I may have. The answer to the second season is no. Cupheadronpa was never meant to have the inclusion of the DLC cast. The inclusion of Winchester in that one Chip's free time event was me acknowledging it, like some kind of Easter egg, but that's as far as I'm willing to go in terms of the DLC, unless I choose to do a short little one-off story with them one day, but even that's not a huge yes or no. However, I'd like to say that this is subject to change. Currently I have no plans, but who's to say that in the future I won't have a change of heart? I wouldn't get my hopes up for a DLC Island killing game sequel, but it's possible. They just won't appear in our current story. As for any projects I do have planned, I've been working on an original killing game story on the side. It wouldn't be Danganronpa, and it might have similarities with other killing games I have never played, but I've got hopes for it. I'm sure some people have heard and seen some things relating to Project Destruction, and if you have, kudos to you. I have no idea when this will come out, what format it'll be, all that jazz, but I'm hoping to make it into a video game. We'll see. Are there any milestones you have? Like 6,000 followers? You'll do a fan art competition? I don't know. I mean, I could if you guys wanted me to. I wouldn't say I have plans for milestones, though. This is the only real plan I had. This video for 5k followers, and maybe another video when we finish the story. If you guys do want some kind of contest, though, feel free to let me know. If there's enough interest, I'll make a poll on the Cupheadronpa Instagram account. Next, I'll be answering questions relating to random little facts about characters. None of these are crucial to the story, so they're not things you need to know or remember. They're just fun little tidbits of info. Who fights the most in hell and who gets along well? Piru and Bonnie fight a lot. No one really likes Mugman right now either. Everyone's fighting with him. As for who gets along, other than the casino crew, Brainybeard and Hopus have actually kinda rekindled things. They talked it out and everything's good. I mean, they're not on best friend terms, but they're okay being around each other. As for Bonnie and the other two Carnival Trio members, they're working on it. Can Kappa swear in German and Russian since they're trilingual? Yep, they sure can. They actually swear in those languages more than they do in English. Which they don't actually swear a lot in English, so I don't know how you want to take that. But yeah. Are Wally Warbles and Grim Matchstick alive in the Cupheadronpa verse? Grim is. Wally has yet to be confirmed. His son is alive, but he is currently MIA. I want to know what happened to the ghost train. They're fine. They can't actually die, so they're just off somewhere. Who knows? Maybe they'll show up. Who's the tallest out of the surviving group? Assuming you're talking about those who are currently still alive and not survivors, Wheezy. He's 6'5". What's each of the characters' favorite colors? Ooh boy, okay. Let's see. Okay. Cuppa loves yellow. Cuphead likes red. Mugman likes blue. Dice likes purple. Cagney's favorite color is dark brown. Hilda's is dark red. Bonnie likes hot pink. Beppy's one of those guys who says he likes rainbow because he doesn't want to choose. Jimmy likes whatever color sand is. Cal likes brown. Werner likes purple. Kala adores navy blue. Brainybeard likes maroon. Sally likes baby blue. Chips likes yellow. Wheezy likes gray. Piru loves green. Hopus loves blue. For the intermission cast, Elder Kettle likes sepia tones in general. Mangosteen likes white. Devil likes blood red. It swears it's not cliché. Chalice likes orange. Chimes likes golden yellow. Spectre likes orange and brown. I wonder why. Mac likes green. Grim likes fiery orange. Loopy likes red. And Willy likes pink. I think that's everyone. Finally, questions related to general fangans. Essentially, I'm just answering questions about the fangan community and how it feels to be here. What would you say your favorite fangan is outside of the Instarampa community? Good question. I don't know many. I haven't finished my Danganronpa Another playthrough yet, so I can't count that one. I know like 3, I don't know. Danganronpa 69 was fun. I liked 69. I loved the mix-up of characters, and you know me. I'm a Luigi fan through and through. Luigi Pro Tag? Immediate one. Hey buddy, what do you find the most fun and least fun of the Bronpa production process? Trademark. Hi bestie! I think the part I like most is writing the daily lives. I love making characters interact and just having them be silly and ignoring the looming threat of death that is constantly over their shoulder. It's so much fun! As for the least fun, honestly, the final product is always great to look at, but the making of the execution specifically, especially now that I've started tweening, it takes so long, and it's so tedious, and I'm so bored with the editing. But like I said, the final product is awesome, and so worth it, so I can tolerate it. Also, the art isn't so bad to make, so it's alright. What's one of the best things about running a fangan? Is it the people, fans, or just making it? That's such a hard question to answer because both of those things have been such amazing experiences. Making the fangan is long, tedious, and takes a lot of time, effort, and work, but it's such a wonderful feeling to see your creation flourish and come into reality as time goes on. You get to see your improvement in real time through your art, your writing, your editing skills. Not just your own, either. I've gotten to watch Apollo, my dear friend and the voice of King Dice in Cupheadronpa, grow and improve their craft in relation to voice acting over the years, and, again, it's such a nice feeling. You grow as a creator when you make a fangan because you post things daily and get feedback as you go. I love it so much. Then there are the people. I've met some of the nicest, coolest people through this account. I found support and understanding, and I learned to explore my identity because of those people. Sure, I've met bad people, but there are bad people in every community. That's nothing new. The community of fangan creators and readers I found and come to befriend and settle into has helped me grow as a person. It's helped me overcome some of my problems, helped me learn how to take care of a community, helped me learn to stand up for myself and hold my ground. I love the community and the people. I don't think I can actually answer this question because both have just been really good things to live through. And I'm so happy I've made it this far. And now for miscellaneous questions that didn't really fit into any other category. This includes joke questions as well. Let's get to it. Hi Jetpack Snail Rico, my fave YouTuber, big fan of the channel. Can you sign my face? Why yes. Yes I can, Mixed Tofu Damaru, creator of hit Fanganronpa Penguin Ronpa. Here you go. Skibbity toilet. Sticking out your gap for the Rizzler. You're so skibbity. You're so Phantom Tax. Okay, in all seriousness though, I've actually been meaning to watch the series to see what all the fuss is about. I mean, as kids we had crazy little series too, right? Annoying Orange, ASDF movies. Obviously that's a different case, kind of. Oh, those weird MMD things, like Heavy is Dead and Wonderwall, like, which is Wonderwall, but without any of the vowels. All really stupid, but pretty fun all the same. I'm actually curious, and while I probably won't get super into it, why not check it out? For the bit. And also, I work with kids, so knowing what they're into could help. Or it'll make me look like those adults trying to be hip. Oh well. Can we get a smiley chips? Firstly, yes. Yes you can. Here you go. Secondly, I too love Yveltal. Big red spooky guy. I love the legendaries and mythicals in Pokemon. They're so cool, you know? It may be a little basic, but my favorite one is Bulbasaur. I actually have a plushie. His name is Bub. He's my little guy. Look at my little guy. I'm making you look. Look-splode now! Kiss, marry, kill. Dice, Kella, and Werner. You want me to choose? I cannot choose. Alright, okay, I'm gonna marry Kalla. I love her so much. Like, actually, it's not normal. I'm sorry, Kali, I know she's your wife, but it's just for the bit. I swear it's for the bit. You can have her back. Anyways, it's so the obvious choice, but can you blame me? Can you... Kiss. I'm gonna have to go with Werner and kill Dice, I think. Yeah, okay, so I'm marry Kalla, kiss Werner, kill Dice. I mean, he's the devil's right hand. I don't know if he'd even actually die. I don't know. Hi, Snail, you're very cool. You are also very cool, Wavy. Absolute banger of a person. How are you doing today? I'm doing pretty good. On the day I'm writing this, I'm doing good. The day I wrote this script was June 8th, so that was like my last day of being 19, but I am currently recording this very late, on June 18th, so actually 10 days later. So I am now a 20-year-old. We're vibing. No, seriously, I'm doing pretty good. College is nice, work is nice, and I've been in a good mood. We've been vibing. We've been vibing? I just said we've been vibing. We've been vibing. I hope you're doing good too. How is Briny doing? He's dead. Which of the talents the cast have would you want as your ultimate title? Ooh, I've never thought of that. I'd like Sally's. I am a theater kid. So, yeah. I've never really been an actor in a show, sadly. I was going to be the singing telegram in the Clue performance my school was holding, but it never happened because of COVID shutting everything down. That same year, I was going to be part of some silly musical about conspiracy theorists and occults. But, again, COVID. So, anyways, I'd want Sally's out of the whole crew. Just wanted to say that you are a massive inspiration to me. Thank you for just being yourself. Thank you so much for the message. I know it seems kind of egotistical to add this in, but I wanted to address it all the same. It was such a kind message that someone took the time to write, and it makes me smile. I get messages like this sometimes, telling me I've inspired someone to make their own fangan, and it always makes me feel so proud to be running Cupheadronpa. I'm so glad that I can be someone inspiring, someone that leads people to starting their own little stories. Spade was someone like that to me, and I think it's important to have inspirations in your life. It's healthy to have people to look up to. Just know, and this isn't aimed at the person who asked this question at all, by the way, but more so at younger me, and maybe some of you guys out there who haven't realized they may be doing this. The people you look up to and who you find inspiring are still real people. Don't put them up on pedestals and idolize them. It's important to remember this, because idolizing people can make you forget that they're still human, that they can and will make mistakes, that their works may have problems within it. It's okay to look up to people, but it's also important to remember that whoever it is that's inspiring you can make mistakes, and probably will. No one is perfect, just keep that in mind. And that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, sending in your questions and art requests, and for 4 years of such a fantastic journey. I'd like to thank a few people in particular before finishing the video. My little brother, Snib, for being the one with me when this entire thing was first born. We were in my bed just talking about silly fangans, and now, 4 years later, I've reached 5,000 followers. I doubt this would actually exist if I hadn't had him to talk about this with. Crazy how a funny conversation that occurred during the pandemic and quarantine led to this. Next, I want to thank my mom for being essentially my biggest supporter the moment I let her know the existence of this fangan. She's been a constant reader, always asking for updates, making sure I was doing good outside of this story. Without her, I never would have sent a sample of Cupheadronpa to my university application, and for all I know, I never would have been accepted into the creative writing program. It's all thanks to my mom that I've used this silly fangan to get farther in life. For non-relatives, I want to thank the Snids. You know who you are. You guys are some of the best people I've known in a while, and talking with you has always been a blast. You guys all mean the world to me, and your ability to deal with my crazy hyperfixations and rambles have really helped me over the years. I'm so glad we've made this little family friend group together. To the beta readers, even to those of you who aren't really active anymore because you've moved on, thank you for helping me make my story interesting and as fantastic as it is. To my voice actors, thank you so much for bringing these characters to life, whether they're dead or still alive. I love how fun the voices you've made for them are. I love how kind and talented you all have been. To the server mods, you guys keep upholding the peace. You've made me feel capable of pulling away from the server when I was going through troubling times and wasn't able to look after it myself. Finally, you guys. Yeah, it's cliche to thank the audience, but there's a reason we always thank you all. Your continuous interest, your patience during my hiatuses, the way you always hype up the FTEs, the BDAs, the trials, the executions, the motives, the CGs, the way you would tell me to focus on myself first and foremost when I announced hiatuses. Without you, I wouldn't have reached this 5,000 follower milestone. I mean, you are the followers, you know? If you weren't here, the video wouldn't be made at all. So, to finish this off, thank you. And here's to another year of Cupheadronpa, and to many more twists and turns. This is Snail, speeding off. Arby's.